All right, the purpose of this video is to give you an idea of what to expect the first 2 days that you're at Northern Tier. And this video is really just going to focus on Ely Base. All right, it's not going to talk about going to the other places where you could go for Northern Tier.
Hey, real quick, right before we jump into this video, if you'd do me a huge favor and hit that like button. Also, thank you for subscribing to this channel. If you'd like to be notified of future videos, please hit that bell icon. Have a great day and enjoy this video.
Before we really get into this video, you will need to read through the Northern Tier guidebook when it comes out, which usually is January, February, about that time frame. The guidebook from Northern Tier will have the latest information in it that you need to know. All right. Also, there really isn't necessarily any particular order of things to be done that I'm going to show you in this list, but it's rather a list of things that will get done. So the order in which I present these things may not be the order in which you do them. But generally speaking, you will do all of these things that I'm going to present in this video. And you will also have your interpreter, which will be guiding you through this entire process as well. So really the intent here is just to give you some visual idea of what to expect. So let's talk about your arrival. Now make sure to check with Northern Tier about the allowable arrival times. Traditionally, again, we're talking about Ely. Okay, traditionally, your crew should arrive in the afternoon. Okay, there won't be any lunch available for crews who arrive early. If you arrive early, you'll probably be asked to stay in the parking lot, just so you know that. So make sure your travel plans account for eating lunch before you arrive at Northern Tier, like in Ely. There are a lot of great places to eat in Ely. Or you bring a lunch with you. Okay. So first, when you arrive at Northern Tier, you will check in with usually a staff member who is at the gate. Okay. Once you arrive, you're going to do that, and then likely very soon thereafter you will meet your interpreter. So who is your interpreter? Well, your interpreter is a staff member of Northern Tier. Okay. For most crews, your interpreter will be with you for your entire trek. So they will also go with you out into the backcountry. So like if you've been to Philmont, you'll pick up a ranger, but then your ranger will leave you after day 2 or 3. Okay. At Northern Tier, your interpreter will stay with you for your entire trek. Okay. Now, once you arrive and you meet your interpreter, at some point you will move all your personal gear to a yurt or a cabin. So this is where being able to hand carry everything makes a big difference. The path to the cabins and the yurts, it's not paved. And it's a little less than about a half a mile from the parking lot to the cabins and yurts. So, for example, you don't want to bring a rolling suitcase and expect that to make the trip. Okay. Also, a part of something you're going to do, usually very quickly, is you're going to have a crew photo. Okay. And then also you're going to check in with Northern Tier, officially check in. So giving them your paperwork and your medical forms and things of that nature. Okay. Speaking of medical checks, there will be, in the check-in process, Northern Tier will likely review all your paperwork, and then if there's any questions, you'll need to address those at those time. Okay. Also, at some point, your interpreter should go through a shakedown with your crew to make sure that you have the correct boots, that you have the correct types of equipment and clothing that you're going to need for your trek. Now, at some point in the afternoon, you're going to start picking up your crew gear. Likely, what you'll pick up for your crew gear on this first day will be your tents. The tents at Northern Tier are Alps guide tents. They're great. Make sure when you pick up your tents to fully set them up. I mean, completely set them up. Make sure they have the right size poles. You have all the poles. The zippers are fully functional, so they open all the way, they close all the way. There's no holes in the zippers. Okay. Also, make sure there's no holes in the tent body or the rain fly. You don't want any mosquitoes being able to get into your tent, and you need to be able to keep the rain out. You'll also pick up the kettle, or as I tend to call it, the kitchen. So the kitchen holds most of your crew gear, especially the items you're going to cook with, like your stoves. And speaking of stoves, make sure that you personally set up and start all the stoves. Okay. You may or may not be used to using, they've tended to provide whisper light stoves. You may or may not be used to using whisper light stoves. You need to be able to use those on your own if needed, independent of the interpreter. And you also need to make sure they're fully functional. Okay, so that means the stove not only works, but it's producing a very strong blue flame at full power. Make sure that you have a rebuild kit somewhere. Either your interpreter is bringing that in their pack or it's in the kitchen itself. You'll also be picking up whale bags. Okay, so the whale bag, I've got videos on this. The whale bags are the items that each boat crew will put their personal gear into. Okay, when you're picking up the whale bags, make sure that the hip belts are well attached. I don't think the whale bags come with different size hip belts, so if you tend to have a smaller waist, I'm not for sure that that's something that they can swap out, but make sure the hip belts are well attached. Also, make sure there's a sternum strap. Make sure that you have the bungee cords available for the plastic liner. So the whale bag, you have a plastic liner, and there's a bungee cord to tie the top of the plastic liner together. Make sure to check all the buckles and straps, that they're in good working order. The whale bags are very tough. They also get a lot of use. And just make sure you check them over very well. Because once you leave, you're going to have, whatever condition it is, that's what you're going to have for your entire trek. You'll also want to practice packing your whale bags this afternoon or that evening. Okay, you want to practice packing them by boat crew with your personal gear. Okay, you do not want to wait until the next morning, which is normally the morning you're going to leave for the water, to pack your whale bags to figure out that you have a problem. You're going to want to give yourself as much time as possible to work out any last little things that could be an issue. All right, at some point you're going to have dinner, and at some point you're going to create a float plan. So your float plan you're going to work on with your interpreter. Normally you're going to have a discussion about kind of things that you want to do as a crew, and that'll depend on where you're going. If you're going into Canada or you're staying in the U.S. side of the border. Once your float plan is approved, you're going to need to make sure you go to the trading post and buy all your maps. Okay, you want to do that the night before. You're going to want to make sure that you have at least two complete sets of maps for your crew, if not 3, and make sure the interpreter has a set of maps as well. You don't want to do this the next morning because the trading post isn't going to open until maybe 8 o'clock in the morning. The next morning's very busy. You want to try to get this done the night before. All right. Typically, to wrap up your first night, you're going to have a campfire. And that will be a great experience to go do as your crew. I also want to say this, and I've kind of mentioned it before, but the night before you leave, let's back this up. The next morning, the morning that you're going to leave to go out on the water is going to be very busy. That being said, you want to get everything done that you can do the day before. So you want to make sure that you go to the training post to get your maps, that you've triple checked that you have everything you need for your trip, because when you get up the next morning, you're going to be very busy, it's going to be chaotic, and you don't want to be second guessing yourself as to whether or not you have everything. Okay? So do everything the morning, the evening, or at least get it all done by the evening before you go to bed. Okay, that will set you up for success for the next morning. All right, that kind of wraps up day one. Remember, once you leave, there's no backcountry stores. This isn't Philmont where you probably had the opportunity to buy something for your crew or for yourself if you forgot something. There's no opportunity to do that at Northern Tier. Once you leave, you're gone. All right, so now for day two. Now this is the morning that you're going to leave to go on your adventure. You're going to go on the water. This will be a busy morning. I would highly recommend that you get up early. The sun will probably be up by 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, okay? So get up early. You got a lot to do today, okay? Your crew historically will be assigned a time that you need to be down on the waterfront to leave. Okay, so make sure you know what time that is. Again, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. Get as much done on day one, the day before, that you can, because this morning will be very busy. All right, so again, this is in no particular order of what you will do the morning of your departure for the waterfront. As a part of the morning, I would suggest that you pick out an area. I'm going to call this an assembly area where you can drop off your whale bags and your kitchen, the crew gear that you got from the day before, your tents and such, which should be in your whale bags. All right, again, I'm just going to call this the assembly area. Well, you're going to have breakfast, okay? You're going to need to either get a locker that Northern Tier is going to provide you, and or if you can put things in your vehicle, that's a conversation with Northern Tier, what your options are, but you need to put everything up and lock everything that you're not taking with you on the water. You just need to get that done and get that stuff out of the way, check out of your yurt or your cabin, and get that done as soon as possible, okay? If you use a crew locker, I just want to let you know they are spacious, but there's not room for a single suitcase and everybody else's stuff. Okay, that's why everybody needs to bring like a duffel bag that can collapse and fold down. Okay, if you've been to Philmont, they're about the same size as the crew lockers at Philmont. They're roughly 4 foot tall, 2 foot wide, and 2 foot deep. Okay, again, do not bring a hard-sided suitcase. Just don't do it. Before you go to Northern Tier, see if they provide locks for the lockers. We have just started bringing our own cable lock just in case that has a combination. All the adults in our crew know the combination to the combination lock. If you bring your own lock, make sure that it's like a cable lock, which just means that if needed, Northern Tier can cut the cable or cut the lock off the locker in case they need to, or you forgot your combination, okay? Or you lost your key. At some point, you're going to pick up your emergency communications equipment. That has varied depending on where you go. Sometimes it's a radio, sometimes it's a satellite phone. Make sure you pick that up. Everyone needs to know how to use the emergency communications equipment and where it's going to be. Okay? And then at some point, you're going to go pick up a life jacket if you didn't bring your own, and you're going to pick out a paddle if you didn't bring your own. You will also go pick up your canoes from the canoe yard. And then at some point you will go pick up your food. Now, I've made a lot of videos about portaging, and I'm not going to repeat any of that information here. I just want to remind you to go watch those videos so that you understand how many food bags would be ideal for your trip. Again, I'm not going to go into that here because I need you to go watch those videos on portaging and portaging options so that you will have a much better idea of what would be helpful for your crew. So by now, you have your whale bags, you've got your kitchen, you have your tents, you have checked out your stoves, you have all your maps, you've picked up your food, you've picked up your emergency communications equipment, and you've picked up your canoes, your life jackets, and your paddles. So you should have everything you need for your trip on the water. So all that should end up back at your assembly area. Now, for the first time ever, at this moment in time, you have all the items you're going to have for your backcountry adventure. So what I want you to do right now is just kind of settle down for a minute. And then I want you to go through this checklist. First, I want you to review your portage plan. I'm not going to explain what that is. I have videos on that. Again, for the first time ever, you actually have everything. So you need to make adjustments to your portage plan if needed. Like, for example, it's going to be the first time you have your food bag full of food. How heavy is that? Do you need to make adjustments? Okay, do you need to move your people around because you need to finalize your boat crew members? Okay, and by boat crew, you need to double check to make sure that that boat crew has all their personal items packed inside a whale bag that is going in that canoe. So by boat crew, you need to make sure you have figured out who is carrying that canoe. Okay, make sure that person practices picking up and setting down the canoe a few times. Okay, now once that person who's carrying the canoe has been finalized, you're going to need one of those for each boat crew. Then you can figure out who's going to carry the whale bag and who's going to carry the food bag. And then from there you need to assign or finalize the boat crew positions. So I have a video about what the roles and responsibilities are for the different boat crew positions in the canoe. Okay, so who's going to be the captain? Who's the lookout? And then if you have a third person in the canoe, who's going to be the navigator? So just double check, make sure everybody understands what they're doing. Who's portaging the canoe? Who's carrying the whale bag? Who's carrying the food bag? If you have a personal dry bag, who's carrying that? Who's carrying the paddles and the fishing gear? Okay. Have each boat crew count how many people and bags are in their boat. Just a reminder, the interpreter should not be paddling, so they're writing navigator if at all possible. Again, that'll depend on many factors like how many people you have in your crew. But your interpreter ideally will be writing as navigator, which means they're not necessarily having to paddle, and that helps the interpreter help your crew by helping them with their paddling skills and navigation. Also, as a part of reviewing your portage plan, who's going to be the last person down the trail to sweep the arrival site, the trail itself, and the departure site to make sure that no items got left behind? Who's that person going to be? Okay, I just want you to take some time here and get organized. Because once you leave the waterfront, at some point you're going to have a portage on day one. And I don't want your first portage to be chaos. You've done all this preparation, I don't want you to fumble it on the 5-yard line. Okay, so just take a little time, take a breath, take a few minutes and kind of go through all this. Okay, and just as a note, on your first portage, okay, you're doing this for the first time, for real, you're in the backcountry, you have everything, take it slow. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Okay, once you've gotten through a few portages, you will get through those you'll start to get through those portages pretty quickly. You don't want to rush, especially your first portage. Just deliberately go through the motions and take the time to get it done right. Make sure you don't leave anything behind. Okay, remember to count your bags and your people by boat crew before you leave the portage site. So once you get everything loaded back on the canoes, you're all sitting in your canoes and the navigators are making sure they know where they're going next. Before you leave, count your bags and your people. Make sure you don't leave anything behind. Because if you leave something behind, that sucks. Now you got to figure out what happened to it, where was it, and maybe go find it. You don't want to do that. Just make sure you count everything, bags and people, so you have everything before you leave. Okay. All right, all that being said, before you go down the water, check this also. Does everybody know where the first aid kit is? Where's the repair kit in case you need it? Where's all the emergency communication equipment? Where are the permits? If you need them, where are the passports? Does everyone have water in their water bottle? Okay. Those are all important things to get done. You don't want to get down to the waterfront and be like, well, now I got to fill up with water. I mean, you can do that. You'll have everything, but that's just one more thing you could have taken care of easily before you went down to the waterfront. Okay. Review your float plan. Make sure you have all your maps by crew. Does your interpreter have maps as well? When you get down to the water, which way are you going? Remember, we're talking about Ely, and for most of you, when you get down to the water, you're going to go to the right. Or north, which is north towards Canada. Not that you may be going into Canada, but when you get into the water, you're going to go to the right, which is going towards Canada. Okay? Are your maps in their cases? Okay? Everything ready to go. And so now we've finally arrived at the moment where we're ready to depart. Okay? All your preparation you've done has led to this moment. All right. So I'm not going to go into actually getting on the water and all that. If you've done all this, you are more than prepared to be ready to go out on your adventure. Okay? And that brings us to the end of this video. I do want to mention I have another video called Last Words of Advice. That's another video that'll help you run through last checks before you depart base camp. Again, once you depart, you're not coming back, and you don't have the opportunity to change anything once you're out on the water. Okay. So again, this is just an overview of your first 2 days in Northern Tier. And with that, have a blessed day.
Hey, I really hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you'd like to support this channel, remember, please subscribe to this channel. Tell your friends about it. Thanks for hitting that like button. Everything here is free. I want to give back to the community. I want to give to you everything here for free. I've been out in the outdoors for a long, long time, and it's great that I can be able to give all this information to you. That is what's most important to me. If you would like to give back, I do have a GoFundMe page set up, and you can follow the link. And if you'd like to, if you're a youth with your parents' support, I would gladly accept your donations. Thank you and have a blessed day.